Blood Oath. Chapter 1: The Encounter. The night air in Milan was heavy, thick with the kind of silence that carried secrets. Elena Moretti hurried down the dimly lit street, clutching the strap of her bag tighter. She had stayed late at the library again, and now every shadow seemed alive. Her steps echoed against the cobblestones, and though she told herself not to look back, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. And she was right. Alessio Romano leaned against his sleek black car at the corner of the street, cigarette smoke curling around his sharp jawline. His eyes, cold as steel, followed her every move. He hadn't meant to notice her. A girl like her didn't belong in his world of guns, blood, and betrayal. Yet something about her caught him off guard. She moved with innocence, yet her chin was raised in quiet defiance, a contradiction he couldn't ignore. Elena's phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at the screen, a message from her best friend reminding her to get home safely. She typed back quickly, unaware that danger stood only a few feet away. A car engine roared at the end of the street. Dark-tinted windows, headlights cutting through the fog. Elena froze as the vehicle slowed beside her, its window rolling down just enough to reveal a pair of menacing eyes. "Need a ride, Bella?" a voice sneered. Her heart jumped into her throat. She shook her head quickly and tried to walk faster, but her path was cut off when the car edged closer. Panic clawed at her chest. And then, suddenly he was there. Alessio stepped forward, his presence commanding the entire street. "Back off," he ordered, his voice calm but edged with lethal promise. The car's driver recognized him immediately. Even in the underworld, the Romano name was carved in fear. The man muttered something in Italian, slammed his foot on the accelerator, and disappeared into the night. Elena turned, startled, her wide brown eyes locking with his. For a moment, time seemed suspended. His stare was intense, unsettling, as if he could see every thought running through her mind. "You scared them off," she whispered, though her voice shook. Alessio tilted his head, studying her. "No," he said coldly. "I reminded them who owns this city." She swallowed hard, unsure whether to thank him or run from him. There was something about him that screamed danger, yet her body refused to move. "Do you always walk alone at night?" he asked, his tone more of a command than a question. Elena blinked, taken aback. "I didn't realize I needed your permission." For the first time in years, Alessio felt a flicker of surprise. No one spoke to him like that, not his men, not his enemies. Yet here was this girl, fragile and fearless at once, daring to challenge him. A slow smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "Careful, Bella. Defiance in this city can cost you your life." Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. She should have walked away. She should have thanked him and left. But instead she asked softly, "And what about you? Do you take lives so is—" The smirk vanished. His gaze darkened, and the air between them thickened. "You don't want the answer to that." A chill ran down her spine. She clutched her bag tighter, finally stepping back. "Then I should go." Alessio let her. He stood there, silent, watching her retreat into the night. Every instinct told him to forget her. She was nothing, just a stranger, an innocent who didn't belong in his blood-stained world. But as her figure disappeared into the shadows, Alessio knew one thing with unsettling certainty. He wouldn't be able to forget Elena Moretti. Not now, not ever. Chapter 2: Dangerous Eyes. The following morning, Elena tried to convince herself it had been nothing, just a strange encounter with a stranger who scared away trouble. Yet, when she looked in the mirror, she still saw his eyes, cold, piercing, dangerous. Alessio Romano. She didn't know his name yet, but she remembered the way the men in that car had reacted to him. They hadn't just feared him, they had obeyed him. Whoever he was, he carried power like a second skin. Elena shook the thought away, slipping on her coat for class. She had enough to worry about: tuition fees, her part-time job, her younger brother waiting at home. There was no space in her life for mysterious men with dangerous eyes. But fate wasn't done with her. Later that evening, Alessio sat at the Romano estate, his glass of whiskey untouched. His consigliere Marco was updating him about the rival Moretti family's movements. But Alessio's mind wasn't fully there. He kept replaying the girl's face in his head, her innocence, her fire. "Alessio," Marco interrupted sharply. Are you listening? His jaw tightened. Of course. The Morettis are stepping into our territory. They'll pay for it. Marco hesitated. You've been distracted. By what? Alessio's gaze hardened. Nothing you need to know. But deep inside, he knew it was a lie. She was the distraction, Elena. Elena's shift at the cafe dragged on. She served cappuccinos and wiped tables, forcing a smile for customers, while her mind wandered back to the man from last night. She hated herself for even thinking of him. Men like him only existed in nightmares. Yet something about him had felt real, magnetic. The bell above the door jingled, and the cafe grew quiet. Elena looked up and froze. He was here. Alessio stepped inside as though he owned the place. The low chatter of customers faded as eyes followed him. He didn't belong in a small cafe. His tailored black suit, his sharp presence, his silent authority set him apart. Elena's heart raced. She ducked behind the counter, hoping he hadn't seen her. But of course, he had. His gaze found her instantly, and when their eyes met, she felt trapped all over again. He moved closer, each step deliberate. Customers parted for him without question. When he reached the counter, Elena swallowed hard. You work here, he said flatly, as if confirming a detail in his mind. She forced herself to stand tall. And you follow strangers now. A hint of amusement flickered in his eyes. Strangers don't interest me, but you. He leaned slightly forward. You are not ordinary. Her pulse quickened. You don't even know me. I know enough, he said quietly, eyes locked on hers. You walk alone at night. You challenge men you should fear. And you're either too brave or too foolish for your own good. His words unsettled her. He spoke like he had memorized her already. Like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. Elena forced a smile. Or maybe I just don't care what men like you think. For the first time, his cold mask slipped, just a little. A dangerous smirk curved his lips. Careful, Bella. You look into a wolf's eyes long enough, and you'll find yourself devoured. She felt heat rush to her cheeks, anger mixing with fear. Then stop looking at me like that. His gaze lingered another heartbeat before he finally stepped back. He didn't order anything, didn't say goodbye. He simply turned and walked out, leaving the cafe in stunned silence. Elena gripped the counter to steady herself. She should feel relieved he was gone, but instead, she felt shaken, and drawn to something she didn't want to admit. Outside, Alessio lit another cigarette, his mind restless. He had tried to ignore her, but now it was impossible. Elena Moretti wasn't just a passing distraction. She was a temptation. One that could destroy them both. And Alessio Romano had never been good at resisting destruction. Chapter 3. Shadows of the Romano Empire. The Romano estate stood like a fortress on the outskirts of Milan, surrounded by tall iron gates and guarded by men with guns hidden beneath tailored suits. To outsiders, it looked like a palace of wealth and elegance. But behind its marble walls lived a kingdom of blood. Alessio sat at the long oak table in the dining hall. His men gathered around him. Marco, his consigliere, spread out maps of the city, marking territories where rival families had begun pushing in. The Morettis are testing you, Marco said. They've doubled their shipments through the northern docks. If we let this slide, they'll think you're weak. Alessio leaned back in his chair, eyes cold. Weakness is not a word associated with the Romanos. He took a slow sip of whiskey, his mind sharp. Send a message. Burn their shipment tonight. Leave nothing but ashes. The men nodded in silence, but Marco's gaze lingered on Alessio. The Morettis are not reckless. If they're moving this boldly, it means they have something, or someone, backing them. Alessio's jaw tightened. The thought of betrayal, of traitors lurking within his empire, filled him with rage. Then we find out who, he said, his voice a promise of violence. Meanwhile, Elena walked through the university courtyard, books clutched to her chest. The sun was shining, students laughing, but her mind was elsewhere. She still felt the weight of his gaze, the chill in his words. You look into a wolf's eyes long enough, and you'll find yourself devoured. She hadn't told anyone about him, not her best friend, not even her younger brother. It felt too strange, too unreal. Yet something inside her whispered that she had stepped too close to a world she shouldn't even glimpse. Her phone buzzed with a new message. Unknown number. Careful where you walk. Bella. Elena froze, her fingers trembling as she read the words. She spun around, scanning the courtyard, but saw nothing unusual. No dark suits, no familiar faces. Just students hurrying to class. Her chest tightened. It had to be him, Alessio. But how did he get her number? That night, Alessio stood in his office, overlooking the city through the tall glass windows. His phone buzzed with Marco's update. Shipment burned. Message delivered. Alessio's lips curved into a cold smirk. The Romanos had spoken, and the city would remember. But even as victory hummed through the blood-stained veins of his empire, his mind returned to her Elena. He had found her number easily. Nothing was beyond his reach. But sending that message had been reckless, even for him. Still, he couldn't stop himself. She was in his head, her defiant eyes haunting him. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. Marco stepped in, his face grim. We have a problem. The Morettis know something they shouldn't. They've been asking about a girl. Alessio's eyes narrowed instantly. What girl? Marco hesitated before answering. Elena Moretti. The glass in Alessio's hand shattered, whiskey spilling across the floor. His voice was low, lethal. What did you say? Marco met his gaze. She's connected. Alessio, the Moretti family name isn't a coincidence. She's one of them. For the first time in years, Alessio felt something rare. Shock. The girl who had defied him, the girl who stirred something dangerous inside him, wasn't just innocent. She was tied to his enemies. A storm brewed in his chest, rage and desire colliding. He should have walked away from her. He should end this before it began. But Alessio Romano never walked away from a challenge. Instead, his lips curved into a dark smile. So she's not just a distraction. She's the key. And in that moment, Alessio knew. Elena Moretti's life would never be hers again. Chapter 4. Unwanted Attention. Elena's footsteps echoed in the quiet evening streets as she left her shift at the cafe. She kept her scarf pulled tight around her neck, her instincts screaming that something wasn't right. The same feeling had followed her all week, a shadow pressing at her back. Since receiving that strange message, careful where you walk. Bella, she had been restless, constantly glancing over her shoulder. She told herself it couldn't be him, that Alessio Romano, with his dangerous eyes and commanding presence, would have no reason to think of her. And yet, she couldn't shake the fear, or the pull. Tonight, the fear proved right. Two men trailed her across the narrow street. They didn't bother to hide it. Suits too sharp, steps too deliberate. Elena's heart pounded. She quickened her pace, but the men matched it. Miss Moretti, one of them called, his tone dripping with false politeness. Our boss would like to have a word. She froze. Moretti. The way they said her surname sent a chill through her bones. They weren't strangers. They knew her. I don't know who you're talking about, she stammered, backing away. The taller man smirked. You will. One way or another. Panic surged through her, and Elena turned, ready to run. But before she could take a step, a black Maserati screeched to a halt beside them. The door swung open, and a familiar figure stepped out. Alessio Romano. His presence consumed the street like fire devouring oxygen. His eyes locked on the two men, and in an instant, the tension shifted. They stiffened, recognition flashing in their faces. Romano, one muttered under his breath. Alessio's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of command. Walk away now. The men hesitated. She's not yours to protect, one said, trying to sound bold. Wrong choice of words. Alessio moved faster than Elena's eyes could follow. 1 second, he stood still. The next, he had the man pinned against the wall, a gun pressed to his jaw. She is what I say she is, Alessio growled, his voice low and lethal. If you value your life, disappear. The second man dragged his companion away quickly, fear etched into their faces. Within seconds, the street was empty, leaving only Elena and Alessio in the quiet night. Her heart thundered as she stared at him. You, she breathed, her voice trembling. You're following me? Alessio turned, his gun slipping back into the holster beneath his coat. His eyes met hers, sharp and unrelenting. If I didn't, you'd already be dead. Anger flared through her fear. I never asked you to protect me. You didn't have to, he said simply, stepping closer. Your name did. Confusion flashed in her eyes. My name. Alessio studied her carefully, as though weighing whether to reveal the truth, but not yet. Instead, he said, you've drawn attention you don't understand. From people who would use you against me, against my family. She shook her head, backing away. I don't even know who you are. His lips curved into a dark smile. You will. The air between them crackled with tension. She hated the way he spoke, hated the way he made decisions for her. And yet, beneath the fear and anger, something unexplainable stirred in her chest, the dangerous pull she couldn't deny. Alessio glanced at her one last time before opening the car door. Get in. Her breath caught. It's not safe for you anymore. Not out here. His tone allowed no argument. Get in, Elena. Her legs trembled. Every instinct screamed to run, to escape this man who embodied everything she should fear. But as the night closed in, with shadows lurking and threats circling her, Elena realized the truth. Safety didn't exist anymore. Not without him. And so, with shaking hands and a pounding heart, she stepped into Alessio Romano's world. A world built on shadows, blood, and oaths she didn't yet understand. Chapter 5: The Abduction. The Maserati's leather seats felt too soft, too suffocating. Elena sat rigid, her hands clenched in her lap, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows. Every nerve in her body screamed at her to jump out, to run, to fight. Yet Alessio's presence beside her kept her frozen. He didn't look at her as he drove. His hands gripped the wheel with quiet authority, his jaw sharp in the passing glow of street lamps. The silence pressed heavily between them until Elena couldn't bear it anymore. Where are you taking me? She demanded, her voice sharper than she intended. Alessio's gaze flicked to her for a brief second, unreadable. Somewhere you'll be safe. I didn't ask for your protection, she snapped. I just want to go home. He gave a low, humorless laugh. Home. Do you even realize what's happening, Elena? Men followed you tonight. Do you think they'll stop? Do you think your name will protect you? She faltered. My name. Why do you keep saying that? But Alessio didn't answer. His silence was louder than words, feeding her fear. The car rolled past the city limits, winding into the countryside until a grand estate came into view. Tall gates, stone walls, guards standing at attention. Elena's breath caught. This wasn't safety. This was a prison dressed as a palace. The car stopped. A man opened her door, but before she could step out, Alessio's hand closed around her wrist. His touch was firm, unyielding, and she felt the heat of it burn into her skin. Stay close, he ordered. Inside, the Romano estate was all marble floors and chandeliers, its beauty undercut by the tension of armed men lurking in every shadow. Elena's heart pounded as Alessio led her down a corridor, finally stopping at a heavy oak door. He opened it to reveal a room, not a cell, but not freedom either. Luxurious but foreign, a gilded cage. She spun on him the moment the door shut. You can't keep me here. This is kidnapping. Alessio stepped closer, his eyes cold, his presence overwhelming. Call it whatever you want, but you're safer under my roof than bleeding on the street. Her throat tightened, fury mixing with fear. I don't even know who you are. He leaned in, his breath brushing her ear. Alessio Romano. And that name alone should tell you why you're here. The name hit her like a strike of lightning. She'd heard it whispered. The Romano family, the shadows ruling Milan, the empire built on blood. She had never believed those rumors were real, until now. Elena's knees weakened. You're Mafia. His smirk was dark, dangerous. And you, Bella, are a Moretti. Her head snapped up, shock written across her face. What did you just say? You heard me, he said, voice low. You carry the name of my enemies. The Morettis are moving against me, and somehow, you appeared in the middle of it. Coincidence. His eyes narrowed. I don't believe in coincidences. Her chest heaved. She wanted to scream that she had nothing to do with it, that she was just a girl who studied, worked, and took care of her brother. But her words tangled in her throat under the weight of his gaze. Alessio studied her for a long moment, as if deciding whether to believe her. Finally he stepped back, his expression unreadable. Until I know the truth, you stay here, under my watch. Elena's hands curled into fists. You can't decide my life for me. His eyes darkened, the temperature in the room dropping. I already have. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elena turned away, her chest burning with anger and fear. She was trapped, a pawn in a game she didn't understand. And yet, as her heart raced, she couldn't deny the other feeling creeping into her veins, the dangerous thrill of his closeness. The way his presence consumed every inch of the room. He was her captor, her enemy, her protector. And whether she liked it or not, her life was no longer her own.